So Nancy Pelosi's trip to Taiwan went ahead this week despite a string of warnings from Beijing. You've been following this story very closely. Have you been surprised by the mainland's response to her visit?
Not really. Actually, Beijing has been furious about the visit from the very start. Over the past 2 weeks, Beijing has launched a diplomatic campaign trying to stop her visit, with harsh warnings about unspecified, resolute and strong measures. Actually, last week, President Xi Jinping warned his US counterpart Joe Biden not to play with fire over Taiwan. And Beijing has condemned both Washington and Taipei over the visit so far. China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi earlier called the visit as crossing Beijing's red line over Taiwan. And he said it proved again US is the biggest destroyer of peace and regional stability in the Taiwan Strait. But interestingly, Beijing has so far avoided largely targeting Washington in rolling out retaliatory measures, apart from summoning the US ambassador to China, Nicholas Burns, and verbal condemnations. I think it's mainly because Beijing understands the danger of the escalation of the increasingly acrimonious tensions between Beijing and Washington. And Beijing also is aware of the Biden administration's misgivings about the visit itself. So the punitive measures Beijing rolled out so far are almost exclusively aimed at Taiwan. Apart from the largest military drills in the Taiwan Strait, it has also rolled out some symbolic economic sanctions against Taiwan.
Can you share some analysis on the current military drills that are taking place in the Taiwan Strait at the moment?
Sure. Actually, I think it's for the first time, Beijing attempted a blockade of Taiwan. It is unprecedented compared to the third Taiwan Strait crisis in 1995 and 1996 in terms of the missile firings. And actually, Beijing began live fire drills from Thursday to Sunday in 6 locations surrounding Taiwan. Beijing has launched about 11 Dongfeng-class ballistic missiles so far, including 4 believed to have flown over Taiwan's main island, and 5 believed to have landed in Japan's exclusive economic zone.
So what has been Taiwan's response to the military drills?
Actually, I think President Tsai Ing-wen issued a video message overnight condemning the live drills. And Taiwan's Defense Ministry has described Beijing's live fire drills as amounting to a sea and air blockade of Taiwan. And actually, Japan's Prime Minister, Washington and Taipei have all condemned Beijing's live fire drills as a gross overreaction to Pelosi's visit. G7 and Washington have called on Beijing now to use the visit as an excuse to change the status quo in the Taiwan Strait.
For people who haven't been following this story closely, why has Pelosi's visit been seen as such a provocation to Beijing?
It's a good question, because Beijing has been hypersensitive about any official exchanges between Taiwan and foreign governments, because Beijing sees Taiwan as a breakaway province that must be reunited one day by force if necessary. And Beijing has actually stepped up military intimidation against Taiwan in recent months, accusing Washington of hollowing out its one China policy with arms sales and high-level official exchanges. And also, Pelosi has been one of the most prominent China critics since the 1989 Tiananmen Square crackdown. And Pelosi's visit was the first by a sitting US House Speaker in 25 years. Pelosi had a packed schedule during her short stay in Taiwan. She met Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen and other senior Taiwanese officials, and in a move clearly aimed at Beijing. She also met some human rights activists.
With rising military tensions, are there fears that this could lead to a physical confrontation in the Taiwan Strait?
Yes, there are a lot of fears about that. But most experts actually believe there won't be another Taiwan Strait crisis or an open conflict, because war is in no one's interest, especially ahead of the 20th Communist Party Congress in China and midterm elections in the US. And US-China relations have been plunged deeper into a new Cold War, and the possibility of accidental conflicts, have increased significantly. Actually, China's aim is very clear. Beijing wants to isolate Taiwan and deter pro-independence forces in Taiwan. So Beijing is expected to take a hard line on Taiwan and Washington ahead of the Party Congress. But Beijing also has to be careful not to overplay its hand, because its experts have been warning that the prolonged and disproportionate military response will alarm its neighbors and push the Taiwanese people further away. And I think it's going to cast a long shadow over Beijing's ties with Taipei, and even dim the prospect of a peaceful reunification. And on the US, Beijing's overreaction may force Washington to strengthen its support for Taiwan and step up its security alignment with Japan and other regional powers to deter the perceived threats from China to regional stability.
You're a China reporter, you've been focusing on this for the last week. What will happen going forward, and what will you be paying close attention to?
Going forward, I think Beijing needs to heed concerns among Chinese experts about the direction of its foreign policy, especially its unfriendly ties with the US-led West. And also on Taiwan, I think, apart from the military deterrence, Beijing needs to come up with a strategy to resume talks with Taiwan and woo Taiwanese people if it is serious about peaceful reunification.
Thank you very much for your time.